You walk past it every single day. That low, stubby weed pushing through the sidewalk crack. That fuzzy plant colonizing the abandoned lot. That tangled shrub in the ditch by the highway. You've ignored them your entire life, and so has almost everyone you know. But here's what no one told you. Some of those weeds kept soldiers alive on battlefields, stopped epidemics cold, and became the direct source of the drugs in your medicine cabinet right now. Today you're about to see 20 of them. Stay to the end because number 20 is the reason aspirin exists. Calendula, the war flower in your garden. You're a medieval soldier. No hospital, no antibiotics, just a sword wound, a muddy battlefield, and whatever you grabbed from your herb pouch before the fight. What did you grab? A bright orange flower, calendula. Warriors called it the war flower because a poultice of crushed petals could keep a wound from going septic when nothing else was available. That wasn't superstition. Modern clinical trials confirm calendula extracts accelerate wound healing and reduce inflammation through triterpenoids and flavonoids. It grows cheerfully in any garden. You can infuse the dried petals in oil and have a legitimate wound salve. The emergency room has been blooming in your backyard this whole time. Sea buckthorn, the plant Soviet cosmonauts trusted in space. You're orbiting Earth at 17,000 miles per hour, being bombarded by radiation, and your skin is deteriorating. What does the Soviet space program reach for? Not a synthetic drug. A small orange berry from the Himalayas. Sea buckthorn oil, extracted from Hippophae rhamnoides, was used by Russian cosmonauts specifically to protect against radiation-induced skin damage. The reason it works is unusual. It contains omega-7 fatty acid, one of the rarest in nature, which actively repairs mucous membranes throughout your body. Clinical trials show measurable improvement in eczema, dry eyes, vaginal dryness after menopause, and inflamed skin. It heals from the inside out. Most moisturizers only pretend to do what this berry actually does. Comfrey, the plant that tells your body to knit itself back together. You sprain your ankle badly. It swells. It's painful. It's going to be weeks. Unless you know about Comfrey. Symphytum officinale contains a compound called allantoin that does something remarkable. It promotes cell proliferation, triggering your own tissue to rebuild faster than it would alone. Multiple peer-reviewed clinical trials show topical comfrey root extract significantly reduces pain and restores function in ankle sprains, back injuries, and osteoarthritis, outperforming some pharmaceutical options in direct comparisons. People called it knit bone for centuries. Turns out that wasn't poetic, it was literal. One critical rule: external use only. The pyrrolizidine alkaloids in comfrey are toxic to the liver if swallowed. Use it as a salve, just don't eat it. Mullein, the lung's forgotten best friend. You're standing in a vacant lot. There's a tall, fuzzy plant with a yellow flower spike towering over the weeds. You've seen it 100 times. You've never once thought it was medicine. But for centuries, that plant, mullein, was what people reached for when their lungs filled with thick, stubborn mucus. The leaves contain saponins that act as natural expectorants, helping you cough the infection out instead of letting it settle deeper. Recent reviews confirm mullein's anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects on the respiratory system. Traditional healers also infuse the flowers in oil for ear infections. Your modern cough syrup suppresses the cough. Mullein helps the cough work. There's a big difference. Plantain weed, the emergency room at your feet. You're on a trail. You get stung by something. The pain is immediate, spreading, and you have nothing in your pack. Look down. That flat, oval-leaved weed you almost stepped on? That's plantain. And it's been following human civilization for so long that Native Americans named it white man's footprint because it sprouted everywhere Europeans walked. A clinical trial in Iran found that plantain ointment healed second-degree burns better than standard treatment. Chew a fresh leaf briefly to break cell walls. Apply it directly to a sting or cut. Pain and swelling begin to ease within minutes. It's free. It grows in sidewalk cracks. And most people have been treating it like trash their whole lives. Yarrow, the soldier's herb that does two things at once. Most medicinal plants do one thing: stop bleeding, or fight infection, or reduce inflammation. Yarrow does all three simultaneously, which is why soldiers packed it into battle wounds for thousands of years across Greece, China, and Native America. Achillea millefolium is named after Achilles, who legend says used it on his warriors' wounds. Studies confirm genuine hemostatic effects. It measurably shortens bleeding time, plus anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial activity. You can crush fresh leaves and press them into a cut right now, and the bleeding will likely slow within minutes. You can make tea for fevers. It grows wild across every continent except Antarctica. You've probably mowed it down without a second thought. Self-heal, the plant that named itself after what it does. Imagine being so confident in a plant's power that you simply call it self-heal, or heal-all. That's what our ancestors did with Prunella vulgaris, the low-growing purple flower that colonizes lawns and meadows worldwide. They used it on wounds, sore throats, mouth ulcers, and inflamed tissue. Modern research is catching up in a surprising way. Studies show self-heal disrupts bacterial biofilms, the protective shields bacteria build to resist treatment, making infections far harder to clear. It's particularly effective on mucous membranes. Make a strong tea and gargle it for a sore throat. You may feel relief within hours. It's in your lawn right now. You've probably sprayed it with herbicide. Agrimony, the forgotten gargle that healed throats for centuries. Your throat is raw. You've had it for days. Your voice is rough, every swallow burns, and the drugstore lozenges are just numbing it. Medieval healers would look at you and reach for agrimony, a slender plant with yellow flower spikes found along woodland edges and meadows. Agrimonia eupatoria was the standard gargle for laryngitis, tonsillitis, and pharyngitis long before antiseptic sprays existed. Its tannins have genuine astringent properties, physically tightening and toning inflamed tissue rather than just masking pain. Brew a strong tea from the dried aerial parts. Gargle several times a day. The bitterness feels medicinal because it is. It's one of the most overlooked throat remedies in the entire herbal tradition. White horehound, the original cough drop that actually worked. Walk into an American pharmacy before 1920, and you'd find horehound candy on the shelf right next to your tobacco and patent medicines. Marubium vulgare was the original cough drop, not a metaphor, not a folk remedy whispered between grandmothers. An actual commercial product sold in every general store because it genuinely worked. The compound, marrowbean, stimulates bronchial secretions, making mucus thinner and easier to clear. It doesn't suppress your cough, it makes your cough productive, which is the difference between dragging out an infection for 2 weeks and actually clearing it in days. White horehound is still used in some European cough syrups today. Meanwhile, Americans switched to synthetic suppressants. Think about that trade-off for a moment. Boneset, the flu fighter that packed American medicine chests for 200 years. You've heard of breakbone fever. That's what people called influenza in the 1800s, because the deep, grinding muscle aches felt like every bone in your body was being snapped. And the remedy that filled every farmhouse medicine chest specifically for that symptom? Boneset, Eupatorium perfoliatum. Ethnobotanical records show it was one of the most widely used medicinal plants in 19th century America, deployed heavily during the great influenza epidemics. Traditional use: brew the intensely bitter tea at the first sign of flu, get into bed, and let your body sweat the fever through. The bitterness was considered part of the medicine. It genuinely is. Bitter compounds stimulate the immune response. Modern clinical trials are still sparse, but 200 years of consistent use isn't nothing. Blue vervain, the nerve soother for people who can't switch off. You know that feeling at 11 p.m., body exhausted, mind still sprinting, thoughts looping, jaw tight, sleep impossible. Ancient herbalists had a name for this type of person, someone who needed vervain. Verbena hustata was the classic nervine for people who were, as traditional herbalists put it, wound too tight, overthinking, tense, unable to let go. Modern animal studies suggest genuine anxiolytic effects, meaning vervain appears to calm the nervous system without sedating it. It doesn't knock you out like a sleeping pill. It simply, somehow, helps your body remember how to relax. Steep a cup in the evening, sweeten with honey to cut the bitterness. It's the quietest medicine for the loudest minds. Elecampane, the deep lung tonic that rebuilds what infection destroys. The chest infection is gone. The antibiotics cleared the bacteria, but your lungs still feel weak, rattled, unreliable. You cough every morning. You tire easily. Here's what nobody tells you. Antibiotics kill the pathogen. They do nothing to rebuild the tissue. That's where elecampane comes in. Inula helenium root contains sesquiterpene lactones with both cough-calming and antimicrobial effects. Ancient Greeks dedicated it to Helen of Troy, claiming it sprang from her tears. Medieval monks grew it in monastery gardens specifically for chest disease. Modern research confirms activity against respiratory pathogens, including some resistant strains. It works slowly, weeks, not days. But it doesn't just fight infection, it rebuilds the battlefield after the war is over. Toothache plant, the garden that numbs your mouth in seconds. Bite into a fresh flower of Spilanthes acmella, the toothache plant, and your entire mouth goes numb within seconds. Not slightly numb, completely, shockingly numb. Tingling, electric, saliva-flooding numb. The compound spilanthol triggers such intense local anesthetic activity that researchers are actively studying it as a natural lidocaine alternative. Traditional healers across Africa, India, and South America have used it for oral pain for centuries. Toothaches, mouth ulcers, sore throat. The effect lasts 20 to 30 minutes, long enough to eat, sleep, get to a dentist. You can grow it in a container on your patio in warm climates. First-time users are always stunned by the immediacy. Nature made dental anesthesia. We just stopped growing it. Oregon grape, the skin medicine that modern dermatology is quietly admitting works. Psoriasis and eczema are among the most stubborn, frustrating conditions in medicine. Conventional treatments manage symptoms. They rarely resolve the underlying inflammatory cycle. Now consider this, Mahonia aquifolium, Oregon grape, a spiky Pacific Northwest shrub, has multiple published clinical studies showing topical extract significantly improves both psoriasis and atopic dermatitis. The active compound berberine delivers real anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial effects directly to inflamed skin. You need to use it consistently for weeks, but the improvement is measurable and documented, not anecdotal. This isn't a plant that some people swear by. This is a plant with peer-reviewed trial data that most doctors have never mentioned to you. Ask yourself why. Yellow dock, the weed that clears skin from the inside out. You've tried every cream, every elimination diet. The skin problem keeps coming back. Here's a perspective shift. Traditional herbalists didn't always treat chronic skin conditions topically. They treated the liver. Rumex crispus, yellow dock, is what they reach for. The root contains bitter compounds and anthraquinones that stimulate bile production and support the liver's detoxification pathways. When your liver clears waste more efficiently, the skin, which acts as a secondary elimination organ, often clears with it. Herbalists saw this connection centuries before anyone understood hepatic function. Modern herbal pharmacology supports it. Small doses of yellow dock root regularly over weeks. Not a quick fix, a slow root-level reset for a body that's struggling to keep up with its own waste. Usnea, the antibiotic hanging from the trees. You're miles from the nearest pharmacy, deep in the woods, and you've cut yourself badly. You have no antiseptic. But look up. Do you see pale, hair-like tendrils hanging from the tree branches? That's usnea, a lichen that has served as a wilderness antibiotic for centuries across indigenous North American, Chinese, and European traditions. It contains usnic acid, a compound with demonstrated antimicrobial activity against bacteria, including some antibiotic-resistant strains, in recent laboratory studies. Moisten the lichen and apply it directly to a wound. It genuinely fights infection. Scientists are now studying usnic acid derivatives as potential treatments for drug-resistant bacteria, the same compounds people were pressing into wounds in the forest long before penicillin existed. Barberry, the 2,000-year-old antimicrobial that modern science just validated. Ancient Persia used it. Ayurvedic doctors prescribed it. Chinese physicians documented it. For over 2,000 years, across completely unconnected civilizations, healers independently reach for barberry, Berberis vulgaris, for digestive infections, inflammation, and liver problems. That level of cross-cultural convergence is not coincidence. The active compound, berberine, is now one of the most studied plant molecules in modern pharmacology. Clinical trials demonstrate antimicrobial effects against bacteria, fungi, and parasites. Anti-inflammatory action. Blood sugar reduction comparable to some diabetes medications. Cholesterol-lowering effects. Activity against antibiotic-resistant strains. Ancient healers didn't have microscopes. They didn't know what berberine was. They just noticed across millennia that it worked. Modern science spent decades catching up to what they already knew. Red clover, the flower carpeting your lawn that balances hormones. Every June, red clover carpets meadows across the entire northern hemisphere. Most people mow it down without a second thought. Here's what you're mowing. Trifolium pratense contains isoflavones, plant compounds with mild estrogenic activity that multiple clinical trials have shown can meaningfully reduce menopausal hot flashes. It's also been used for centuries as a topical application for eczema and chronic skin inflammation. The flowers have genuine anti-inflammatory properties. You can harvest the flower heads from any unsprayed area, dry them, and make a mildly sweet tea. Long-term use, weeks to months, is where the benefit accumulates. This isn't exotic. This isn't rare. This is the most common wildflower on Earth, and most people have never thought of it as medicine. Sassafras, the medicine that taught us to question natural. For centuries, sassafras was a celebrated American medicine. Native Americans used the root bark for fevers, rheumatic pain, and digestion. European colonists adopted it eagerly. It was one of the first major American exports to Europe. Pharmacies sold it. Root beer was originally brewed from it. Then modern chemistry found safrole, a compound in sassafras oil with demonstrated liver toxicity and carcinogenic potential in large doses. Internal use is now restricted in many countries. Here's why this plant belongs on your list anyway. It's the clearest proof that traditional medicine and modern science need each other. Traditional knowledge tells us what to investigate. Modern research tells us when to stop. Respect both. Not everything natural is safe. Not everything chemical is dangerous. Sassafras taught us that. Meadowsweet, the original aspirin that was better than aspirin. Here's the extraordinary truth that ends this journey. In 1897, Bayer chemist Felix Hoffmann synthesized aspirin, acetyl salicylic acid, partly derived from salicylates found in meadowsweet, Filipendula ulmaria. He created one of history's most successful drugs, but he also removed something in the process. Meadowsweet contains salicylates and natural compounds that protect the stomach lining. Traditional healers used it for headaches, fever, arthritis pain, and for soothing stomach inflammation simultaneously. Aspirin, the isolated synthetic version, famously irritates and damages the stomach. The whole plant did the same job without the damage. Studies confirm meadowsweet's anti-inflammatory effects. It grows in wet meadows, smelling faintly of almonds. Nature had already solved the problem. We thought we improved it. We hadn't. You've just walked past 20 plants that have been healing humans for thousands of years. Some still growing in ditches, lawns, and forests right outside your door. The knowledge was never lost. It was just ignored. You now see what most people can't, that the most powerful medicines aren't always behind a pharmacy counter. Sometimes they're cracking the pavement beneath your feet. If this changed how you see the world around you, hit like, drop a comment telling me which plant you're going after first, and subscribe, because this is only the beginning.